Hey, what's good everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In this episode of Player POV, I'll be going over my run to Legend in Season 7 of GBL, which I was able to do in the Open Great League. And usually I show you some of the consecutive battles and sets that would lead me up to Legend. However, this time I thought for this video I would look at some of the mistakes I made along the way. These mistakes wound up costing me games in critical sets, and as it turns out, starting at 2962 ELO on Saturday night, it took me 5 tries overall to get to Legend, meaning I had to cross over to Sunday, and in each of those sets I came short by 1 game. So we're going to take a look at all those critical games and decisions, and these aren't team comp losses. These are actually going to be mechanical errors or judgment decisions that I make on my end that ultimately wound up costing me the game and setting me back 1 more match. Before we get into the battles, let's talk about the team a little bit. This is a team that was created by Lordly Haddock, another Twitch streamer and Pokemon Go content creator, so I'll have the link to his channel in the description below. And he is running a team of Talonflame lead, Quagsire Safe Swap, and Midgame in the back. And he was actually able to reach double Legend this season before Remix Cup, so playing against some of the world's best battlers with this team and doing very, very well. I found this team to be very intriguing because it is the perfect punishment to any kind of double tank line shenanigans, so Medicham double tank or Venusaur double tank, and you're able to punish very heavily with the Meganium swap in as well as the Quagsire closer. Quagsire is a very strong safe swap as well, carrying Stone Edge and Earthquake, double nukes here, able to sometimes flip switch advantage or get that shield advantage. And Talonflame right now, it's a very interesting Pokemon. It gets punished quite a bit by the Water Leads and the Bastiodons and the Altarias, but it has a very good matchup against Alolan Ninetales and Venusaur in fighters, and that is the reason that you're using it in the opener. This team overall is pretty weak to Altarias, so I will warn you, if you're Elo banned, if you're seeing a lot of Altarias, I probably wouldn't be playing this team a whole lot, but it doesn't mean that you can't come back with it. Quagsire and Talonflame together can often take care of Altaria, and you're definitely going to see potentially some Waters or Fighters in the back that Meganium can handle. So let's go ahead and get into the battles. Alright, so getting into the battles, and we're starting off with X Money 120X. And this is going to be at the start of the run, so around 2960 ELO or so. And I'm going to be leading Talonflame into Venusaur. So this is exactly where you want to see the Venusaur, except that you're going to have to be respectful of the Sludge Bomb still, and Venusaur will reach the Sludge Bomb the same time that you reach your first charge move. So here my opponent swaps out and brings in the Umbreon. And unfortunately, neither of my backline Pokemon are a good response to Umbreon, so they need a little bit of help before I dip. And I decided to go for a Brave Bird here because I can either deal with a health advantage or I can deal with a shield advantage. And it's very risky if I throw a Flame Charge and he doesn't shield. So here, I'm going to go for the Brave Bird. And my opponent is actually going to respect it here. So I have the shield advantage and I'm trying to switch, but my opponent made a very skilled play here and decided to punish me with a CMP foul play onto my Brave Bird. Very, very well played right there. And unfortunately, because I have thrown the Brave Bird already, I have to actually take this because I've already invested energy to create this scenario for the mid game, and I have to let this go. So this does a ton of damage, and I wound up switching into Quagsire. So before the switch and up until that point, I had pretty much played that match to the best of my ability. However, looking back at the video and thinking about what I did for the switch in, I switched in the wrong Pokemon here because this Quagsire, even if it comes in and it wins against Umbreon, it's going to get farmed down by Venusaur, and that is kind of the weakness of Talonflame, is that even against the Pokemon that it counters, it still is going to have a very rough time when they have the energy advantage. So unfortunately in this case, I'm going to bring in Quagsire, and my opponent is very likely to soft lose this lead because he knows that the Venusaur coming in and farming up that energy is going to be very dominant. So I'm just going to go straight for Earthquake here. I actually wound up mistiming my charge move, so the Umbreon is even farther ahead. However, Quagsire is very bulky, and I can take another foul play or two before I need to think about shielding. And I'll go for the Earthquake here. My opponent is very unlikely to shield, but I cannot go for Stone Edge because it does not deal enough damage, non-stab move. And my opponent is going to bring back in the Venusaur, and you can see here the farm is just going to go to town because he's going to get a massive energy lead, and my Talonflame, after taking that foul play, is actually very close to Frenzy Plant range. So here, I'm going to come in, I'm going to sneak in 1 Incinerate, and then I have to respect the shield here. And my opponent's going to swap into his last Pokemon. Now, this is the unfortunate part. It is an Alolan Marowak, which you know, it kind of makes a little bit of sense because what's going on here is, you know, obviously Venusaur is going to be very weak to something like a Skarmory, and AWAC is a very good cover to that. Not sure what he does against Altaria, so I won't ask, but I was expecting a Galarian Stunfisk in the back here that Meganium can still handle, but in this case, I definitely swapped in the wrong Pokemon into the mid matchup, and then in this particular situation, I really need that Quagsire, right? So my opponent here played very well, knowing that the Quagsire would go down, being able to free up a better matchup for a Alolan Marowak in the back, and I'm in a really bad spot here. So at this point, I probably should have swapped right away. So kind of thinking about it, the Marowak is just going to farm me down at this point. There's at this point, Talonflame is in the red, which means that it can be fire spinned all the way down, and I go for a nuke move here once again. And I definitely shouldn't have, because in this particular scenario, my opponent's going to shield no matter what, right? Because he knows I'm going for the nuke. It's probably going to be the move that deals the most damage. And even if I get my Meganium to come in here, my opponent times this very, very well. And here I have to call baits, right? I have to pray that one of these is a Bone Club so I can survive long enough to get to Earthquake. And unfortunately, my opponent gets to a move right before I get to Earthquake. I have to call the bait here again, and it is still, it's another Shadow Bone, and then I get Fire Spun down. So overall, I think my opponent played very well and had a team that I didn't recognize. It was not a meta team, but I also swapped in the wrong Pokemon. So I made a mistake there in terms of getting the Venusaur ahead, even at the cost of that health advantage or that shield advantage to my opponent. He was still able to bounce back, and it wound up being the case that I was way too low to operate there with that Marowak in the back. So really well played to my opponent there, but you can see kind of how the mistakes I made wound up impacting the late game. Even if I had maintained switch, you know, Talonflame against Venusaur, it's not that dominant of a matchup if the Venusaur has a ton of energy and you're that low of health from the Umbreon swap in. So really well played. Getting into our second battle of the video, I'm going up against SinPoke0903. And you can see here about an hour has elapsed between the last battle and this one, so it's my second win in set right now, and I'm going to be getting a Tropius lead into a Talonflame. So once again, a very favorable lead here, and I'm expecting my opponent to switch out, so my opponent swaps into a Swampert, and I counter switch into Meganium. So at this point, this is looking very good for me, except that I make a crucial error here in 5 seconds. I have no idea why I'm throwing energy right now, because one, the Frenzy Plant's going to KO the Swampert regardless, and then the Swampert cannot KO Meganium even if he hits the Sludge Wave. So I have no idea here why I'm throwing energy, because I should be overcharging, and I'm getting as low as possible so the Tropius cannot farm me down. So here, my opponent makes a skilled play and goes for Hydro Cannon. So there was actually not a reason for him to go for Sludge Wave, because Swampert can't win this matchup. So what he is doing is he is throwing a little bit of energy here so that I'm in a very farmable position for the Tropius. And here, I realized my mistake immediately, so I try to zero charge this, but unfortunately Swampert does take double super effective damage, and I come out of this compensated with 1 Vine Whip of energy. And now the Tropius is going to come in immediately and start to farm me down. So I'm going to go for Frenzy Plants here, and this is going to be double resisted, so it really won't be doing too much to the Tropius, and my opponent's going to be farming up a ton of energy. So you can see here at that health level, if I had just taken some more damage from the Swampert, then at this health level, this would have been the only farm I would have given that Tropius. However, throwing right away puts me in this very tough spot, because now I'm going to be coming in Talonflame against Tropius into at least two loaded Aerial Aces, which doesn't defeat Talonflame by any chance, but if the health was needed on Talonflame, then I would be in a very tricky spot. So I'm going to bring in my Talonflame here. Expecting my opponent to swap again, and he brings in a Bastiodon, and here I kind of overtap the Flame Chart, or the Incinerate there, so the Bastiodon has a 2 Smackdown lead against my Quagsire, and the game is not over yet, because now you have a situation where it's a 2-shield situation, and it's going to take at least 3 Earthquakes to KO, and my opponent will definitely get the 2 Stone Edges, so that is actually going to be enough time for my opponent to try to snipe my Quagsire. And as I'm playing, I realize that this is going to happen. So what I'm trying to do here is take a look at my switch clock down here. So we're a little bit distinct, maybe by 2 seconds. And I'm going to throw my charge moves on the queue and do whatever I can to protect the health of this Quagsire. And of course, my opponent is also going to be throwing charge moves and chipping away at my health. And I'm getting very worried about the Smackdown damage. that is just accruing, right? So you're resisting it, but it's still able to chip away. And I noticed that right before that switch clock comes up, my opponent throws a Stone Edge at me. So at this point, I choose to use a shield, which is another mistake, because the scary thing is if the Tropius comes in and I don't get the switch off, he can double Leaf Blade me, and that's effectively going to end the game right there. So I do not know why I'm shielding this, but as soon as I do, I am anticipating the swap in from Tropius, and my opponent timed that almost perfectly. If you go back and look right there, I had just 2 seconds left on that switch timer, so almost an immediate switch. And there's the Leaf Blade right here. I have to shield, and I have to swap right away. So I swap here, and I decide to take a charge move so that the Bastiodon is not going to be able to farm me down. And I do get air laced here, but I over tap, which is another mistake, because had my opponent had another charge move right there, it's very unlikely, of course, because we knew he came out of that Meganium matchup with double air lace. So it's very unlikely he would have another move, but I definitely over tapped over here, and I'm going to go straight for the Flame Charge and KO this Tropius, removing the biggest threat to Quagsire. And then when my opponent comes back in with Bastiodon, I'm clicking the Flame Charge, and I do not know why. Because in this particular case, I should be trying to go for the Brave Bird here, because Brave Bird is going to give the Bastiodon less farm, and also there's no reason to Flame Charge here because the only move that I need to KO this Bastiodon is an Earthquake. So here I go for a Flame Charge when I could have gotten to the Brave Bird, and I'm going to deal minimal damage to this before going down, but you can see I do give the extra smackdown over to the Bastiodon, and now I'm going to bring in my Quagsire. It's still a race though, but I'm in a good spot, and I'm still able to hit the Earthquake in time. So that was not a loss, but that was a match that was riddled with mistakes. And ultimately, if that lineup was any different, like if he had a Galarian Stunfisk in the back or something else that was a little more versatile against the rest of my team, that could have been a very, very easy loss. Especially, shielding that Quagsire on the first Stone Edge, giving my opponent a window of time to back-to-back Leaf Blade to potentially knock me out. That definitely could have cost me the match right there. So really well played by my opponent there. You can see that the mechanics on this trainer are very, very solid. He knew exactly when to switch, and he knew the tactic with Swampert coming into Meganium, giving that Tropius as much farm as he could to make that match really, really uncomfortable. All right, getting into our third battle here, we're going up against Johnny718 Dawn. So big shout out to Johnny here. He's actually another viewer on different Twitch streams that I'm in. So really cool that he reached out to me after the match, and he actually did not know that I was still expert at this point. So he did not top left, which I really appreciate. And we're going to be leading Talonflame into Abomasnow, so or Shadow Abomasnow. And in this case, you're going to see a trend here, right? So you do have a lot of favorable leads in this meta. However, Abomasnow with the energy lead is still able to beat Talonflame, so as long as it's avoiding taking Incinerate damage. So here, Johnny swaps into a Jellicent, which I meet with Meganium. And so far, everything is going according to plan, right? I'm going to take an Ice Beam here, and this is going to allow me to farm up 6 extra Vine Whips before I throw the Frenzy Plant, because he's very unlikely to have a Bubble Beam or get to another move, and he's going to go down to this Frenzy Plant, and the Abomasnow is going to come in and farm me down. So he smartly waits out the switch timer, and then I'm going to hit it with 1 Frenzy Plant here, and 1 Frenzy Plant is not going to be enough to KO this Abomasnow, so he's okay with taking the damage, and then I'm just low enough that I can't reach the Frenzy Plant here. So he has about 1 Weather Ball already, and I'm going to come in, fire 1 Incinerate, and he's going to throw a move. I can take 1 Weather Ball, but nothing more. And right before I get to the second one, he's going to get to the second Weather Ball. So I'm definitely going to shield this up because I need to eliminate this Abomasnow. Because Quagsire coming in a 2 shield situation or even a 1 shield situation on my opponent's side, I can't much shot it down, right? So I have to eliminate this Abomasnow somehow. And he does throw the Weather Ball and makes a very skilled play by transferring the Incinerate onto Medicham. So I was not expecting this. I was actually expecting there potentially to be a tank in the back of some type that Quagsire could handle. So in this particular case, I go for the Brave Bird, and this is the critical mistake of the game. So up until this point, I have played this match pretty much the way that I would expect it to unfold. And instead, I decided to go for a Brave Bird here, and there was no reason to do this, because the one issue that this play has is that my opponent's very likely to shield regardless, right? Because he knows that the Talonflame must be eliminated for this Abomasnow to still have some value later in the game. So I should really be going for a Flame Charge and then dipping and then preserving a little bit of energy, because I'm at 3 Incinerates, which means that I'm literally a full fast move away from the next Brave Bird if I choose to use it right now. And here I'm going to go for a Brave Bird, giving the 2 counter lead to Medicham. And of course he's going to respect the shield, and then I'm going to swap in the Quagsire. So this is where the match starts falling apart, because you know we've won the lead, we've won switch advantage. However, in the closer matchup, I did not do a very good job of managing this energy. And had I thrown the flame charge there, knowing that the win condition was for my opponent to shield right there, and get that shield, then Quag at this point is able to compete with this Medicham. And instead, when my Talonflame comes back in, I'm going to be in a really bad spot, because I'm going to be 5 counters away from doing anything relevant. And what I should have done here was throw the flame charge, and be 1 move away, deal the damage to the Medicham, and then bring in my Quagsire. So here, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, it's going to take 15 mud shots to get to 2 earthquakes, and everything will be fine. However, Medicham with Psychic and Ice Punch is actually going to outpace me, and not only is my opponent going to outpace me here, but with the game knowledge of how bulky XL Medicham is, he's going to farm me all the way down, and this Earthquake is actually not going to KO. So I went from a winning position after winning Switch and the lead, to now a losing position where not only do I not get the Incinerate through, and I have to shield this move, but my opponent has the back-to-back Ice Punches, and now the match is over. So you can see here, there were a lot of things that went wrong in the last bit of that game, and that wasn't even enough to take out the Medicham. So looking back at that game, one thing I could have done was, if I had Flame Charge, I could have thrown another Incinerate, because that actually would have put the Medicham into a range where the Earthquake would have KO'd, right? Because you can see here, the Medicham survives with a sliver of health. I could have actually farmed up to a Flame Charge, banked that, and then brought in the Quagsire to start throwing Earthquakes at the Medicham. That would have at the very least forced the Medicham to throw energy onto my Quagsire, but instead I took a Psychic, and then I lost the game because there were 2 back-to-back Ice Punches farmed up, plus the counter down, and he still had the Abomasnow in the back. So GG's to Johnny though, that was really, really well played. A very unanticipated backline from my read, and overall I got hard punished there with a 2-shielded XL thick Medicham. Okay, so the third battle of the video is up against JovSMX, and you can see here, based on the time, it is the next day. So I had already failed my legend run the previous day, and I have a fresh set of battles to go for this time. So big shout out to this trainer, by the way, for reaching out to me on Twitter after a battle, and congratulations for hitting legend. This was an amazing performance by you, and I'm really happy that you wound up making it in the end, and I think it happened right after our set here. So I'm going to get into the lead, and I'm going to be leading Talonflame into Deoxys defense. So this is kind of a tricky lead. You do wind up winning this lead as Talonflame, because your Incinerates are eventually going to overpower the bulk of Deoxys. The one thing to worry about is if he carries Rock Slide, but even if he has Rock Slide, you're still able to beat it in the even shield scenarios. So here I'm going to go for the Flame Charge to check if and I have to shield here, because in case he does have Rock Slide, I have to shield. But I make a mistake here, because I go for the Flame Charge here, and if he does have Rock Slide, it actually means that he's going to be carrying Rock Slide Psycho Boost, and this actually means that I should be switching into one of my safe switches right away. So a big mistake on my end to not draw out what is potentially in the back. And this is one problem that I had playing this team, is that I already had to invest 1 shield into Talonflame, and now this Defense Deoxys is getting very ahead on energy. So this is a scenario that I should have probably safe switched the Quagsire to check what was in the back and to see what he would bring out, but instead I decided to stay in all the way with Talonflame. And right now I'm pretty much committed to full Flame Charge Incinerate down, and then see what happens. So here I'm going to go for another Flame Charge, and I do get the shield match from my opponent's side, and I'm now ramped up quite a bit. So I'm going to shield once again, because at this point Talonflame is ramping up a lot, and I'm going to continue to go for the Flame Charges, and you can see here he's going to get to 1 move here. This is not going to be a Rock Slide, it will be a Psycho Boost, and my opponent is going to go down very shortly after. So I've got a ton of energy on Talonflame, and I can, at this point I can pretty much nuke anything that comes in. So let's see what comes in, and my opponent is going to bring in an Umbreon. So right up until that point, against Defense Deoxys lead, deciding to stay in, I had played it up just about the way that I like. However, in this particular case against Umbreon, when the Umbreon safe swap comes in, at this point I need to go and check to make sure with one of my safe swaps what is actually in the back. So here I go for the Flame Charge for some reason when I had the Brave Bird ready, and my opponent doesn't shield, because he knows that he has the shield and that Brave Bird wouldn't KO at that point. So at this point, I'm in a very bad position because all that energy that I invested my shields into have now basically gone to waste. And I have to commit myself to getting to the Brave Bird, and you can see I'm like furiously clicking on that side of my screen, but I don't think I'm going to make it before his first foul play, and I have to go for another flame charge. And my opponent decides to shield. So here I think I'm actually in the clear. So I'm going to continue to try to incinerate down, but my opponent has a ton of energy on his Umbreon, and it's going to be very loaded against whatever I bring in. So I have to make a decision here, and at this point, there has been no indication of what my opponent's lineup is. Normally there would be Defense Deoxys, Umbreon, and Azumarill, the not a spoofer line that was made in Season 2. But if it was the case, he would have brought in the Umbreon safe swap into my Talonflame. So I have no idea what's in the back, but what it's telling me is that because he stayed in, it is possible that I made a critical error here, because if the Deoxys stays in and he knows he's going to lose that matchup, I probably should have preserved my Talonflame at some point in this game. So you're going to see here that I decided to make a call here, and I'm going to bring in my Quagsire, because in the event that he does have an Azumarill in the back and he's just playing it incorrectly, I still have the Midgame to take care of it. So here, my opponent's going to spam these foul plays, and this is where a huge error is made, because I see my opponent switching the Pokemon here, but it's not the Azumarill, it's a Venusaur, and this wound up costing me the game. This is a very winnable match, but not only do I pause for a second because I have no idea what to do here, because I was expecting a water type, not only do I pause here and wonder how I'm going to get out of the situation, I let the Venusaur get a 3 Vine Whip lead. And if you do the math on the Vine Whips there, this is where the challenge, actually it's a 4 Vine Whip lead here. So if you do the math on that, that is going to mean that he's going to be able to outpace me to my charge moves. And you can see here, throws the Sludge Bomb there, throws right before I get to the Earthquake. So the Earthquake would not have KO'd the Venusaur anyways, but I needed to have some kind of health advantage on it so I could take it down with Quagsire potentially down the road. And right there, not being able to switch quickly enough, and misjudging my opponent's backline right there, and not preserving my Talonflame, not being able to switch out. These were all mistakes that culminated in a very, very devastating loss in this particular set. So here I'm going to take the Frenzy Plant, and unfortunately, even if Quag gets the Earthquake, you can kind of see here a stab Earthquake from Quagsire himself. We're going to come up just a little bit short, and although I can Mudshot down, guess what? You got the Umbreon fully loaded, ready with the foul play, ready to end the game. So definitely GG to my opponent right there. I had a bunch of decisions to make in that game, and I made pretty much all of the wrong ones. So really well played right there, masking the team by staying in with Deoxys, not showing me what was in the back until much later on, and then that play with Umbreon snarling down that energy to have Venusaur potentially put both my Pokemon in a very low state. Really, really well done, because I don't think there's any other way that I could come back from this game. But he's got the foul play here. We're going to go down once again, denied again on another set to Legend. And yeah, GG's to my opponent. And once again, congratulations on hitting Legend. You played that really, really well. Okay, and moments later in a different set, I go up against ShinyHunterBen, which I know is part of the community, so shout out if you see this video. And he's going to be leading Surfetch'd into Talonflame. So this is kind of an interesting matchup. You have two birds going up against each other, and although Surfetch is kind of disadvantaged in this matchup, Surfetch does carry Brave Bird, and I do have to be very mindful of it. So here my opponent decides to stay in the opener, and this is kind of great for me because my Quagsire is now pretty protected. So I'm just going to go straight Flame Charge. Brave Bird is a little bit of overkill onto Surfetch'd, and I decided to show the first one because he did farm up to 7 counters, and it would be kind of a blowout. I'd probably lose the game on the spot if I did that. And I decided to go for the Flame Charge here, and my opponent lets this go. So the good part about that is because Surfetch is so squishy, I can throw an Incinerate, and he's gonna fall 1 counter short of being able to get to the charge move. So I am in a very dominant position here, having won the lead, and I'm gonna see what my opponent brings in. So he's definitely ABA weak in some way, and my opponent brings in a Lantern, and this is where the game starts to fall apart for me, because if I see the Lantern, my best response to it is Meganium, and Quagsire actually doesn't do too badly against it because you can actually, you're gonna take neutral damage from Thunderbolts, and you're gonna take neutral damage from the Hydro Pumps, right? So in this case, I should be swapping out immediately, and I don't. And instead, I decided to go for a fake Brave Bird onto this Electric Flying type that completely walls Talonflame. And you can see here, my opponent has no reason to shield this whatsoever. I deal basically inconsequential damage to it, and then I safe swap into my Quagsire here, and my opponent brings in a Tropius. And at this point, the game is in a very, very bad state, because not only is this Tropius going to have a field day against my Quagsire, my Talonflame is once again somewhat low from the initial couple of incinerates I did with Lantern, and right now I'm in a very tough spot. So I'm going to go for the Stone Edge here and try to deal some damage. And of course my opponent's not going to shield the first one, but we're going to try to race the second one here and force a shield at the very least. And my opponent's very likely to shield this one because he's, yeah. So we CMP there, and I'm going to take this Leaf Blade and go all the way down, and then bring in my Talonflame as soon as I can to try to take out this Tropius, but my opponent does a great play, and he undercharges the Leaf Blade and comes out with even more energy. So I try to bring in my Talonflame as quickly as possible, and I pretty much right now have to shield this because, unfortunately, that Airlace would have come very close to KOing me before I can KO him with Incinerates, and my opponent has the Lantern to snipe. So really well played right there. I knew the risk of the combo play was coming up, but I think I had to shield that Airlace because that Tropius was so healthy enough, and Tropius is very bulky, that even with a Flame Charge, it can still survive a couple of Incinerates before going down. And here, he had Thunderbolt ready because we let the Lantern farm up quite a bit, and now even if I have Meganium, which is a wall to Lantern, and I still get the preferred alignment that I wanted originally, now we're in a spot where I'm going to be in a losing position. So my only play at this point is actually to Vine Whip down the Lantern the entire way, and throw as many Frenzy Plants as possible onto it. Even if the Tropius has energy, I think that's the only play that I can really make at this point, and my opponent actually is going to get me close enough. I'm going to farm all the way down, but yeah. There's not a lot of walls to Meganium here, but like I said, but Tropius is definitely one of them. You can see this Frenzy Plant does very minimal damage, and despite throwing back-to-back Frenzy Plants here, we're going to be very, very short of being able to KO this Tropius, and he's already got the move, and I think this is an Airlace, and that's going to definitely guarantee the KO. So you can see right there, had I managed my energy correctly, and had I just not thrown against Lantern, if I just gone for that Quagsire immediately, we're talking about a completely different game. There's no chance to snipe me with a Thunderbolt on Talonflame. I could have won against the Tropius, even if he had come in and tried to farm me down, and we would have had Meganium against Lantern, which is one of the biggest walls that there is, right? So resisting both of those charge moves. So really well played on my opponent, but I definitely could have played better in that situation. I think the Lantern there, not being a very common pick in GBL, although I know of its existence, it's still sometimes gonna get me. And I saw a Water type, and I was thinking, oh man, Brave Bird is gonna really deal a lot of damage, so he better shield this. But Electro typing is gonna negate all that. So Lantern being one of the bigger walls to Talonflame in this meta. So really well played on my opponent there, and we'll go to the next game. All right, and our last battle and our winning in for Legend is against VergyVerg, very talented battler, a Twitch streamer, and a YouTube creator, so I'll have his information in the description below. I am 2-2 in the set. I need a 3-2 to cross over the finish line, so let's see what happens here. I'm going to be leading Talonflame into a Swampert. So this is obviously one of the worst leads that you can have with this team, and you have to safe swap to Quagsire right away and pray. So I'm going to go into Quagsire. And Vergy stays in, which is very smart. He knows that the Swampert can deal a ton of damage to this Quagsire and then swap out. So he's going to hit me with the Hydro Cannon and then bring in the Skarmory. So I'm just going to spam these Stone Edges. These Stone Edges are non-stab, so they're not going to KO the Skarmory. You actually need 3 of them to be able to fully take one out. So I know that I'm not going to be able to win switch advantage, which means that right now everything that I have in the game must be put on Meganium. And I know that Skarmory and Swampert are usually accompanied with Galvantula, so this is kind of the worry right now. So I cannot shield anything except on my Meganium. So here, he's going to go for Sky Attack, knock me out, and actually at the range of health that he's at, if I get lucky enough, I should be able to Incinerate the whole way down. And that's what I do here. So right before he gets to the Sky Attack, or maybe even the Brave Bird, I'm able to Incinerate down, and I'm 1 Incinerate away from a Brave Bird. So he's going to bring back in the Swampert, but very smartly decides to throw Energy, which is awesome. I'm going to actually tank this onto my Talonflame, and I have the sliver of health there in the CMP, and right there, I obviously can't shield here because I've lost switch advantage, right? And he probably has a grass counter in the back. He brings in the Galvantula, and this is where I start to get a little nervous and make mistakes here. pretty much for Meganium versus Galvantula, it's six Mind Whips to a Frenzy Plant, and then 5 to the third one. And then for lunges, it's going to be 3 Volt Switches each, right? And Galvantula wins CMP. So I pretty much start freaking out here because I think that I can still win the game. I think I can still win with the 2-shielded Meganium against Swampert, and a 1-shield Galvantula. So if you look at my technical play here, and I'm trying to sync my fast moves with his, but I should have thrown right there as the Volt Switch is coming in because I was 1 Mind Whip ahead, and this is going to give me the ability to deal the most damage early on in the game, and I have no idea why I didn't. And right now, I'm in a serious risk of losing because now Vergy is actually synced up with my own fast moves here. So I have to shield everything here. So I take the lunge first, which is really, really bad. And here I'm going to throw right away, but I want to giving him the half the Volt Switch. So you can kind of see how chaotic things are getting in my head right now as I'm trying to manage this matchup. And I wound up giving him, I wound up trying to catch up with Mind Whips here, and I wound up letting him throw a lunge again. So at this point right now, I actually thought that I was going to lose because I basically have to back-to-back Frenzy Plant here. And I do wind up denying him the Volt Switch right there. And then this is now a double debuff Frenzy Plant. And as it turns out, I probably could have taken him out even with double debuff on Frenzy Plant, but it's going to be very, very close. And you can see here the Swampert comes in, but because he threw that Hydro Cannon at Talonflame, I can reach the Frenzy Plant and then take him out. But you know, so obviously, like, I go on to win this matchup, so GG's to VergyVerg. You know, really, really well played on his part. I think every part of the game that he needs to play there, he managed really well. But you can see there, through my own nervousness and taking the lunges first before I threw my own Frenzy Plants, like, had that been any kind of health difference like that, that third Frenzy Plant that I threw almost didn't KO. And if he would have gotten another lunge off, the game would have been over on the spot. So, or I would have been within Hydro Cannon range to be taken out by Swampert. So really well played to Vergy right there. And it's going to wrap up my Legend Climb. But that was a very close game that I could have otherwise lost in different circumstances. All right, and a 3-2 claim at 29.95 gets us to 30.11, and we're able to hit Legend for Season 7 of GBL. So GG's to everybody that I was able to play along the way. This was definitely one of the toughest climbs that I've made in GBL yet, and expect nothing less moving on in future seasons as everybody's skill level improves. But I wanted to showcase this video because I do want to show you that no matter what rank you're at, whether it is below rank 20, Ace, Expert, Veteran, or Legend, that everyone makes mistakes, especially in these high pressure situations where you're trying to cross over that threshold. So in a lot of these games, I definitely should have either won or had a chance of winning, but instead making those critical errors wound up costing me the games and setting my Legend climb back even further. Okay, and that's going to do it for episode 4 of Player POV, where I analyze my mistakes on my climb to Legend this season. I'd like to thank all my friends and viewers on Twitch and YouTube for following me on this journey for Season 7. And if you like this content, feel free to comment, subscribe, interact with me on social media, and I will see you in the next video.